It's time.
This is Steve Downs, the voice of Master Chief, Spartan 117. Welcome to Quality Time, the KO Koala Entertainment Podcast. Anthony and Skylar will take it from here. Master Chief, out, out, out.
Welcome to Quality Time, the KO Koala Entertainment Podcast. My name is Anthony Nicolosi.
I'm Skylar Sokol.
And it has been a long time since we have talked to you all.
Good to see you again.
It's been over a month since the last time we actually posted a new Quality Time clip. We are now back from GDC. The studio has been heads down working our asses off on a new build that we wanted to. Our goal was to take a new build to GDC of Agora, pedal it around. We did that. We're going to be providing some more information, some more anecdotes, some fun storytelling to our patrons later this week. So, by the way, if you're interested and you want to know how I got this sweet mushroom in the back, how we got these sweet skateboards in the back, we're going to be telling the patrons on Saturday. So, $2 a month, cheapest option. You get a bunch of stickers. If you do anything more, you get a bunch of free shit as part of your subscription. Just saying. Shout out to all our patrons.
Slimy podcast beginning, but it's okay. If you were wondering what I was doing during the intro, looking around, I was looking for my cat. I assume she's under the bed. Usually she's primed to annoy me immediately when the podcast starts, but today I'm being given a gift of no cat.
That's right. So now GDC has come and gone. I'm wearing my GDC shirt that Skylar did not see me buy from the
I have a GDC hoodie. Should I go get it? Are we going GDC wear?
You can go while I give him the lowdown if you want. Skylar's going to go get his hoodie. We went to GDC. We came, we saw, we conquered, as the saying goes. We surpassed our goals for the show. Whatever. We're not going to be talking about that in this episode. We're going to give our GDC review, because there are a lot of indie devs, Skylar. There are indie devs on Twitter who are talking about, like, I wish I went. I kind of have FOMO about, like, should I have gone? And I want to give them our as factual, as objective as possible, and we'll call out when we're being subjective. Of course, all of this is going to be from our perspective, and it's going to be in reference. Skateboard down!
Oh, shit.
This is all going to be in reference to our goals. And what we were trying to accomplish during GDC, but we'll call out when we think some things are more objective of statements.
I'll also tell you that Anthony and I have pretty diverse opinions on a lot of probably the more meta outside of GDC things, like food and stuff like that. So those will be contentious regardless, and obviously very subjective. So
yeah, we're gonna go into everything from how viable we think GDC is from a networking perspective, to how safe San Francisco is, to how good the food options were, all of that. So, Skylar, let's maybe just start off your personal. I know we just talked about objective and everything, but your personal high overview. How did you like GDC?
I love GDC. Well, okay, just to preface this, I love conferences in general. I've always loved going to conferences. I've always loved going to conventions. It's an environment I really enjoy. I really like going to talks. I really like just having experiences like that. So for me, I already basically knew going in I was going to enjoy it. It was just like, was I going to enjoy it and also think that it was valuable for us to go as a studio? And the answer to both of those things were yes. I loved it. I had a great time. And I think, honestly, it exceeded at least my expectations for how useful it was, to the point where, like, at the beginning we even had conversations like maybe we wouldn't want to go again, and at the end we were like, we will definitely be going again.
Yeah, I straight up said to Skylar, based off of what we understood GDC to be and what I thought we were going to get, I was like, I wouldn't be surprised that we're going to come this year, it'll be fine, and then we'll never come again. And I leave thinking the opposite. I think there's a good chance we'll be back. So anyway, my high level overview was it was better than expected, better than I anticipated. For what it's worth, there was a significantly less amount of people, and not only people there, but also
companies
there. So more or less the week for us was the first 2 days we subscribed. We went with the Indie Pass Summit. Right? That
Indie
was the name of what we got.
Games Festival Summit, I believe, is what it was
something
called.
so we had access to all the talks that happened on the first 2 days for the Indie Summit.
Yes.
There were also like sponsored talks, I believe, that we were available to everybody, regardless of your
Correct.
past.
That were
all the
being like
time.
paid for by companies that were like Microsoft hosted talks, Unity hosted talks,
Right.
Unreal hosted, Epic hosted talks, stuff like that. That were usually like
Right.
basically trying to sell you something, but also maybe give you some useful information.
Then on Wednesday, the expo floor opened up. This is like kind of more of a traditional conference set,
More like
convention setting. Tons of booths, various like in this case, in this year, due to COVID, like all of the major platform holders, Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo were absent. Epic was absent. Unity was absent. They had a huge booth.
Not absent. They were not absent. You said
I'm sorry. Unity was not absent,
Yeah.
and they had a huge booth.
Maybe one of the biggest booths, actually, I would say.
Yeah, maybe even the biggest.
Yeah.
Now that I'm
They
thinking
really
about
took
it.
advantage of everyone else pulling out. They were like, "This is a Unity conference now."
According to people we talked who had gone to prior years, the Moscone, I think it's called. You say Moscone.
That's what I say. If that's wrong, then that's fine.
I was saying Moscone,
Yeah.
like scone, because there is scone at the end. Anyway, the Moscone Center, there's like the north and south sides are connected now with like 2 big hallways that apparently were not there before. So it's more open feeling, which probably didn't help the sense that like the fact that there was like less companies there overall.
What I heard was that normally there are about 20,000 people who attend GDC, and this year there were 10,000. So it was about 50% of the normal size of GDC.
And so this convention opened up on Wednesday. So the first 2 days primarily revolved around these talks that were happening, like from a proper like conference content perspective. The first 2 days were talks, or at least this is how we experienced it. First 2 days were talks, and the expo opened up on Wednesday, and there were still talks and still different meetings that would happen. For example, there were like speed networking sessions that you could go to, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those things were happening in addition to the conference, the expo, the convention. But yeah, the convention opened up on Wednesday.
That's
so
correct.
So going into it, Skylar, well, we just mentioned the talks. Let's start there. We knew how valuable the GDC talks could be going into this, because there are a lot of, if you're listening to this right now and you're an aspirational game dev, you should absolutely check out the GDC YouTube channel, where they post a bunch of GDC talks over the years. They are not, it is not by any means the entire
Catalog
set of talks. Right. GDC publishes all of the talks given to the GDC Vault. You have to pay a lot of money if you want to gain access to that. I think it's like roughly $650 a year if you're an indie dev. But the talks are phenomenal. They are just mind-blowingly full of content, and we have benefited greatly from the talks over the years as we've been making Agora and making the studio. So we knew how valuable they'd be going into it. We attended I would say it was under a dozen talks in total. I think.
Yeah, so we didn't have, with the Indie Game Summit, we didn't have access to too many, and we were pretty discerning about which talks we chose to attend, mostly because we had other goals besides just going to talks, right? Like, talks, if there was a talk we missed, it's obviously something we could find online later. There were ways to get the talks after GDC. There were not ways to get the networking opportunities after GDC. So we definitely deprioritized talks basically as much as possible, especially after the first 1 to 2 days.
Yes. I will say some of the talks we went to were great. They were beneficial, but there's no way I think we felt like there's no way we could really cover everything. We definitely didn't go to a few of the talks that we wanted to go to. There's a lot of talks that are happening at the same time. So if one of your goals is to go for the talks, you really got to pay attention to the schedule and see how viable.
You got to plan thoroughly what you're going to go to. And I feel like there are a lot of really good talks that were not included in our package. So if you're really going for the talks, either that you got to make sure you get what's exactly catered to you, or you're going to have to spend big to get the all access to make sure you can go to everything.
I think the Indie Pass was roughly $400 per person.
That's
I think, including the talks. and I think the all access pass they included the other ones
3,000.
was like
That's correct.
$3,000 per person.
Yep.
And I mean that's usually geared, I think towards the devs who are being their passes are being subsidized by their AAA studios.
Right.
But yeah, if you're an indie dev, just keep that in mind. Depends what talk you're going to, and we'll get into like whether how one thing we'll talk about later is like how much the talks played into like subsequent networking situations. I think we can talk about that in a moment, but generally speaking, there was a talk. I cannot remember the gentleman's name. It was that narrative one, like procedurally generated.
Yes, it was one of the creators of the game Wildermyth.
Wildermyth. Okay. It was great talk. We, even though we weren't maybe immediately using some of the things that they talked about in the talk, benefited greatly. Again, we knew how beneficial the GDC talks were. There were some other like marketing and business ones. They again proved themselves on that front.
Every talk we went to had great content and was of the quality that I would expect from a GDC talk.
Yeah. Saw mixed reviews on that on Twitter. Some other people actually felt like the quality of talks had gone down this year. Again,
we have a very small sample set.
Yeah, based off of our sample set and what we chose to go to. And if you're curious, if you're an indie dev listening to this and you're interested in what we went to, you can always reach out to us and we'll tell you what the talks we went to. Those were really good. The best talk, I think, though, the most valuable talk, and this is definitely probably in relation to what our studio's goals were and what we were trying to accomplish. But there were these talks that were happening once the expo opened up.
They're called
on Wednesday
GDC
and Thursday.
Pitch Day was the name of the talks.
GDC Pitch Day. Literally, a group, I think it was 4 to 5 studios would present 5-minute pitches to a group of publishers and investors. So this was their actual.
It was
game
like
pitch.
Shark Tank style game show setup, basically.
Yeah, because they were in front of everyone attending the talk. So there was at least, I would say, at least 60 or 70 people in the audience, right, Skylar? I would probably say.
Yes, it was huge.
Yeah, there's a sizable audience there, and
that's like a nerve-wracking amount of people for sure to do a pitch.
Yeah,
to.
you would. I was nervous for them. And then after they give their pitch, the publishers and investors on the panel would give them feedback on the pitch. Their games were all immediately playable on the floor. So we learned a lot. There were the team that did the best would get a pitch of the day, I think, award, like best pitch. We learned a lot there about what, if you are an indie studio or if you're an indie dev, part of a studio that's looking to secure publisher investment, those particular talks, especially if they become available in the vault later, and especially if they've done it in prior years, are invaluable.
Yeah, I'm sad we didn't know about it the first day it happened, and if we go back to GDC, we will definitely be attending all of those.
Yes, very good.
I would say for me, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, you go.
I was just gonna say, for me, the second best talk, was the best talk before these pitch day things weren't really a talk. Like they were more of an event.
They filled up the talk time slot, but they're not really a talk.
The best actual talk I went to, which Anthony, slept in through. No, he didn't sleep in. He got to the badge line late, so he had to wait at the badge line for a long time. It was a talk about legal issues in publishing deals, which sounds horribly boring, but actually the guy giving the talk was great. He was very entertaining, and he went over a lot of things I would have never thought of when reading a publishing contract or a publishing deal that will be really valuable for us going forward when looking at those kinds of deals. And honestly, just interesting from a legal perspective, which is something I have vague interest in anyway. So that talk was really cool.
Again, if you are an indie dev who's looking to set up a studio in the early days of setting up a studio, looking for publisher investment, that talk and talks like it are invaluable. There's actually a nice chunk of legal related talks for free on the GDC channel.
Shout outs to Chris Reed and his IP series, right? Intellectual property series.
Yep. GDC. I'm sorry. Yeah. The GDC Chris Reed. I think all 3 talks in that IP series are available on the GDC Vault. Definitely check it out. They're great. So, talks. I think the other big thing we were coming in with was we had a wide expectation of what the networking reality was going to be. We had heard a lot about people saying go to GDC and network, right? That's where you make your connections, and that's where those connections can eventually lead to somewhere. It's not always the case. It seemed like it's not usually the case, at least for an indie studio like us, where some of these like you would actually cold turkey get a publishing agreement or something like that on the floor. Usually if you did, you had pre-existing like meetings in place with publishers to do that kind of stuff.
And there were
It was pretty rare.
supposed systems set up to set up these meetings, which we can talk about, but
Yeah. So if you, unless you had a situation like that, you were coming to build connections for maybe that you would maybe subsequently leverage beyond GDC. Given the fact that a lot of people were not present, you know, the greatly reduced people set, if you will, I actually thought this went really well for us personally. And the reality of it was, in fact, so one thing I'd love to answer for any devs who listen to this that I was curious about going in was, we had heard everything from the fact of like, you're going to be just like mingling at bars, making connections that way, to you're going to have very formal meetings with people, and it was hard to understand or perceive going into it like what the networking reality was going to be. And I would say it actually was that full breadth of experience. We did everything from going to party at bars and networking there to formal publisher meetings and everything in between. So anything you want to say there?
I think we got very lucky in that we had some connections going into GDC that got us into a few like more exclusive events that gave us a lot of benefit. And I only say that to say the ways we made those connections pre-GDC were just by reaching out to these people like on Twitter or on whatever social media and just chatting with them. And I would say if there's people you're interested in talking to or interacting with at GDC, to just reach out to them in advance and try and talk to them about it. Because I mean, in our experience, pretty much everyone in the game dev community that we've met so far is totally down to talk to you if you expressed interest in talking to them.
Yeah, and especially if you, I don't know, come across as sincere and authentic.
Right. You're talking to them
really
for the right reasons.
Right. And authentically trying to build a relationship. I guess people are really receptive to that.
In addition to that, there's also just a list of public GDC parties that are open to the public that you can also go to. You can find it. There's like a Facebook group that has it every time. If you want the group, send us a message. I'll send it to you. I think there'll be a new one for next year, but I assume it'll have the same name. But we got that list too. We didn't attend any of those events together. I went to one of them that was much more of like a barcade hangout event than a networking event, but there are like strictly networking events on there too, and I bet if we go again we might try and go to a few more of those depending on what our nights look like. So those are interesting too.
I wanted to emphasize that point Skylar made. It. We did benefit from these connections that we built beforehand. I think that's actually a theme. I mentioned it in regards to the publisher meetings. If you're thinking about going to GDC, really start to set some plans in motion. Like what we're going to do for next year is we're going to start doing some of these things many months in advance, reaching out to publishers who we might want to meet with at GDC if we want to. Side note, I don't know if you really necessarily need to meet with a publisher exclusively at GDC. Like you could potentially just set up a meeting with them before GDC. But in the event that you did want to, especially if you want to do something like get your game in a booth, like one of the IGF festival booths or something like that, you definitely need to be working on that kind of stuff many months in advance. You don't want to leave that last minute. And same goes with these networking things. Like start building those relationships beforehand. And again, being in person really helps strengthen maybe some of the bond you may have with people that is weaker just over the internet. But when you're in person with them, when you got to go out and eat with them, when you got to talk with them face to face, you got to build that authentic, you got to communicate that authentic relationshipness, if you will, in person. You get it. Like it's those kinds of things. Networking better in person, yes. More sincere, more authentic in person.
So one other thing that relates to networking is just the speed networking that Anthony was mentioned. That was one situation where there's like basically forced networking, but I honestly thought those sessions were great. I only went to one of them. Anthony went to two, but we met a lot of interesting people there. I feel like if you're looking for something really specific at those sessions, you basically just have to get obscenely lucky. Like you're not going to go into that session, be like, I want to find this exact type of person. That's not how they work. But if you're open to just meeting anyone and having networking experiences that could turn into something later, they're really good to go to.
Yeah. Um, more or less the format was like you're put in front of another person for 5 minutes. You're quickly telling them about yourself, and they're telling you about themselves, and you get some information about them, and then they move on. So you do this over the course of an hour with whatever, like bunch of people. Um, but again, I don't know, outside of this, there weren't many like formal networking things that we at least went
That
to.
we attend. Yeah,
Uh,
some of the public parties were formal networking things, but yes, there
yeah, some
wasn't
of the
like
public
what we
parties
sort of
were
hoped
that, right?
for or sort of expected maybe was that at the expo there would be like more like obvious networking opportunities. It wasn't that way. Like you really need to create your own networking opportunities. Just chat with people after a talk or like in the hallway or like in the hotel lobby, right? You just talk to people if they're bored.
And I will say, in that regard, I mean, I'm an extroverted person. Skylar is too. We we can mingle and talk with people. If you're not like that, if you know that your personality is more, if you're more introverted kind of personality, if the idea of having to go to a convention and like mingle with strangers gives you great anxiety, I would just really emphasize that if you still choose to do it, I would really put more of an emphasis on networking before the
Yeah.
event, so that when you go to the event, you already got, in a sense, have your friends. You have no, you got more known quantity, if you know, like, you know what
Yes.
you're coming into on
Yes.
the experience a little bit better, because if not, um we
You're going to have
you
to
see it
just
on
cold
Twitter.
approach people is what you're going to have to do. And it's scary.
You do have to cold approach people, and if that's not something you enjoy or like to, I don't know if I enjoy it per
No.
se, I can do it. And if you don't like it and you can't do it, just be aware, like
That
it
was the
is
situation.
it is, yeah.
Yeah.
There's not, unfortunately, I feel like if there were more formal structures for some of the networking events, it could alleviate some of those problems. If you had something that's like, you know, whatever, these people are looking for audio people. There's like a group of people looking for audio
Yeah.
people, and there's a more formal setting to have those networking discussions. We're looking for art people.
So
We're a
speaking
publisher looking to fund studios. Like that would maybe help that, but they don't exist.
So that does exist, speaking of which, and we can talk
Oh,
about that. So
okay.
there's two ways to make meetings with people at GDC, in the GDC and before GDC. There's a GDC built-in matchmaking thing where you can look for people who are looking for specific things, tell them what you're looking for, and try and schedule meetings. There's also a third-party service called Meet to Match that does an event at the same time as GDC. That's basically just like a meeting scheduling service. You can pay for the service. I believe it was $130 for the week, and then you can say exactly what you're looking for. You can search for what other people are looking for and try and schedule meetings with people. And lots of people were on there, like publishers for us especially. We also looked for artists on there. There were like all different people on the Meet to Match. So if you are trying to set up more official meetings, I think getting on that as early as possible when it opens for scheduling meetings and starting those could create some more easy in networking opportunities where you don't have to do this cold approach kind of stuff.
Yeah, true. Sorry, my previous comments more from the fact there's not like sessions dedicated to this kind of stuff. But yeah, the other, unfortunately, like Meet to Match, a thing I didn't like is that it is third party. It's not obvious. If it wasn't for one of our contacts at one of the private events we went to, we wouldn't have known about it maybe until later. It is another expense. So if you're thinking to yourself, it was $400 to get the pass, $130 per possibly to get into that Meet to Match service. You know, you can start to see this event. We'll get into it at the end, but like this is not cheap. This event is not cheap by any means.
Yeah. So one last networking note. Something we did that we didn't plan to, well, we planned to do, but almost forgot to do, but Anthony thankfully saved us at the end, was bring business cards. It was huge that we ended up having business cards. We gave out so many. You have so many fast networking situations where you're just talking to someone for a few minutes, even not at speed networking, where just people are busy. So you don't have time. So being able to give someone a business card and take theirs and have them be able to contact you later or look up your studio later is so valuable. So highly, highly recommend business cards. Even simple ones are fine. Just something that gives someone a link for how to get to what they need to get to.
Yeah, if you... The other thing business cards do is there are definitely situations where if you don't have the business card, the other person doesn't give you theirs. Yeah. It's like it's just an awkward moment because it's happening quickly where you're like, oh, I don't have a business card. And then the exchange like doesn't happen. It's part of the exchange. you're giving it to them, they got to give you theirs. It's kind of a quick social thing moment that happens, which is a big deal. Okay, like I cannot emphasize enough how big of a deal those business cards are. You gotta have some with some primary contact information, whatever.
Yep.
So I
That's
do you
networking
think
for
that
me.
you think that gives a good overview of that? Now, one thing we went for. So again, this maybe doesn't fit your need as much, but I think it's important to say for those who are similar to us, we wanted to pitch our game to publishers.
Yeah.
Like we wanted to get that feedback and we wanted to do that. I will say we did not set up some of these relationships ahead of time. We were unaware of some of the absences that were going to happen at the event ahead of time. So we expected some people to be there that weren't and didn't end up being there. And we really had to hustle as much as possible. We leveraged Meet to Match. It is not easy to actually get some dedicated time from publishers cold turkey.
Or even to just find
without,
publishers cold turkey. I would say for a
yes.
scale 1 to 10, if you're going to pitch your game and you don't prepare in advance with meetings or at least knowledge of exactly who you're looking for, you're on like a 2 out of 10. Like it's almost impossible.
Yes. Don't expect. Again, this maybe is different from other years where there's
Right.
more platform holders. It might be different, but the publishers were not just like all there, easily accessible, easy to get access to and pitch to. There weren't
The
many.
one publisher we talked to directly was through Meet to Match. We like met him in like a random place. Like it was very formally designed. We didn't see him at any other time. They didn't have like a booth or anything. It was very like, yeah, they're not there like looking for you. You need to be finding them.
And to back up, and just so you know, was it worth it for us to pitch to a publisher? I mean, our pitch to this particular publisher, Scott was saying, is maybe the most valuable thing that happened to us during GDC. We learned so much. We got so much great feedback from the publisher on what the publisher was looking for, to like not only what this particular publisher would be looking for in order to give our studio investment and to publish the game, but also what other publishers would be looking for. It was extremely valuable. I highly recommend that if you're considering pitching to publishers at GDC, you go through with it. If nothing else, to build muscle around the pitch. You will. We went in there expecting a breath of like negative feedback or critiques, if you will. We expected it based off of where the game's at right now. We got that, but we got way more information and we got praise we didn't think we would get per se. You get a really great. You got to do the pitch. I strongly recommend going through and trying to pitch your game to people. It was extremely valuable for us.
Yeah, I wish we had been able to do it more, and we'll definitely be trying to do it more in the future.
Yes. So
that's the
wanted
pitch.
to say that it's hard to come across pitching opportunities. Build those relationships in ahead of time, and those opportunities in ahead of time if you're trying to do that at GDC. Scott, the next thing I want to talk about is what was at the convention, like
at the
actual expo.
Right. What was at the expo? Crypto.
There was a lot of crypto and NFT this year. I don't know. Based off of the comments on Twitter, definitely seems like way more than any prior year.
I imagine because it was a little scarcer, they probably got better deals on getting in, so a lot more of them were able to get in than usual. Also, NFTs and crypto are even more of a hot button. I mean, our NFTs especially are ramping up hard on the hot buttonness, so I'm not surprised. But dang, were there a lot of crypto, and dang, did we attempt to avoid them as hard as possible.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was not. I actually ended up talking with a few booths and sincerely just tried to have a conversation with them. I directly asked a few of them how they were improving the user experience, even with what they were attempting to implement. I mean, one person even straight up told me their game was not fun. Like they told me our game's not fun, but you're basically mining crypto and building up whatever, investments for yourself based off of the things you pick up, blah, blah, blah. Just like, I don't know. Like
stay away from those booths.
Yeah, a lot of people were like, they kind of were like along a corridor, and a lot of people we had talked to were just staying out of that.
Yep. No, I will say though,
So that was there.
there
Yeah,
were
go
some
ahead.
really useful boosts there too, some great boosts, especially some of the bigger boosts. If we had been developing our game in Unity, there would have been amazing opportunities to talk to Unity people. Like there's a Unity booth that was great. There was an Adobe booth that was demoing
cool.
their Substance VR painter or their Substance modeler
Yeah,
VR
it's not
version.
even it's not even, it's like a few months away from even being like in a public beta.
Yeah.
So you did have like previews of some really cool bleeding edge is that what
Game
you said? Cutting
development
edge?
tech. Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yes.
You're good.
So that kind of stuff is there. There is some really cool bleeding edge, cutting edge tech, whatever the fuck.
Both
that
of those
idiom
words
is.
work fine.
So I there that is there. I don't know. This I could see being different in other years when you had Epic there
Yeah.
and the platform holders there and stuff like that. I wasn't super impressed with the amount of that kind of stuff
No,
that was there.
I think it was because of the year that there was a significant lack of that. I mean, even if just Epic, Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo had been there, it probably would have made a huge difference.
Right. Now there were a lot of booths surrounding like services and systems,
especially
that
multiplayer services.
Yeah, that could benefit multiplayer. A lot of like mobile too, like kinds of, I don't know, like analytics capturing, logs capturing stuff, authentication and automated moderation kind of tools. There's one that was like I think it was machine learning driven animation. I think was that one booth that the Anything World that we saw that was compelling. You get some idea of stuff that's out there. So I'm definitely gonna that there were a few things for us making a single player game in Unreal Engine. There were definitely some things in there that we'll check out afterwards, but yeah, again, I feel like this year in particular was a little bit limited on that.
It was. Now, let's say you're going there. I mean, there are also obviously games there. Now, which is a little weird because this is a game developer conference, but there is the Indie Games Festival, which is like the Indie Game Awards for the year, basically. All those games are on display. There were also a bunch of games like in production on display, which is interesting to me. I mean, we could talk about this later, but it's interesting to me that you would even have a booth at GDC. Like, what's the real goal of that? It's not like the GDC people are your target audience, but maybe it's to attract publishers. Maybe that gives you a better chance. I'm not sure why some like unpublished games have booths at GDC. Maybe to try and get press coverage. But also, there was a super sick section called Control Alt GDC or something, which were all alternate controller games.
Yeah, it was
games
super
that
cool.
use like unique controllers. And I'm not talking about like a dance pad. There was one game that was like an animatronic crow. There was like a game with like a skateboard. There was a Morse code game where you used an actual Morse code machine.
There was the rhythm game that was using computer vision to do like a Beat Saber sort of thing.
Well, that was not in the alternate control place, but that was
not? Okay.
No, that was just a booth. But that game was sick too.
That is alternate controls.
It is. Right? It is. There was a computer vision company who has a bunch of mobile computer vision games. You can check out on our Instagram, and I have videos of the Morse code game and some stuff that I'll send to Anthony that he'll post later too. But yeah, that section was awesome.
Cool.
I think that was honestly cool the alternate controller section was probably this year's like booths my favorite thing at the GDC Expo.
There was this arcade section.
Oh yeah, the retro arcade.
Yeah, you could play like, all these old games. Of course, I played Halo Reach on 360.
Yeah.
I don't know how like retro that was, but I also got to play like Marathon from Bungie, like the '94 Marathon on a old iMac, you know, like that was cool.
Yeah, that was sick. I can't believe there was no Halo 1. Like, why Reach? Maybe he couldn't get an Xbox. I don't know. Or he didn't want to make people play on the original Xbox controllers.
Dude, that sucks. The Duke was the shit, man.
No, that controller sucks.
Big old boy.
The black and the white button, get that shit out of here.
It was cute, dude. It felt alien, you know? It was dope.
Yeah, speaking of Alien, Anthony's favorite booth was Alien Worlds.
That was an NFT thing. It was not my favorite.
His wife made him talk to them. And
I do think Alien World was the one where the person unfortunately told me their game's not even fun.
Now that's a good transition though into why you went up to the Alien Worlds booth, and one thing that maybe we weren't that interested in, but Brittany, Anthony's wife,
sure
was very interested in, and that's swag.
That swag. My wife came with us. She loved the swag that was available in the booths. And honestly, there was a really good amount. I heard, based off of some of the devs that we have gone to previous years that we're talking to, swag's usually even better on
Right. This
another
was
year.
worse swag. I'm going to fill my water.
This was worse swag, but from my perspective, it was excellent swag. So many free shirts, people giving it out readily. So many free stickers, so many free socks, so many free everything, all kinds of stuff. And the epitome of the awards was this one. This is the Grimoire Grave, I think is the name of the game. It's a you gotta check it out. It's a very charming little game that they were giving away this big old stuffed mushroom. We're gonna have the full story for the patrons, but long story short, my wife snagged it at the end of the conference.
Are you spoiling secrets?
No.
Not
I did not spell. Oh, Grimoire Grove is the name of the game. Definitely go check it out. That team was awesome. They were part of Swiss Games. They were like,
yeah, that was one big thing that was at the expo. There were multiple regional sections for indie games being published in like foreign regions, non-US. There was a Swiss section, from Spain section. Do you remember any of the others? There's a Latin American one. Yeah, multiple Latin American ones. It was very cool. So they were trying to highlight some international devs and stuff.
There's a significant international presence there. Yeah. So the swag was exceptional. Good swag. From my perspective. Yeah. Apparently, it's even better other years, but it was still really good. All right. Would you say, Skylar, like, again, if you are going with the primary goal of experiencing the expo and the stuff that's there, if you're an indie, it's $250 if you didn't want to do the talks, $250 for the pass. Do you think it was worth it?
I think if it were a year where there were more bigger companies there, like Microsoft, PlayStation, 100% it would be worth it. This year, I would say it was worth it for us, but I think we got kind of lucky. I think this year maybe it wouldn't have been worth it to some people, but I think in a normal year, based on what we experienced here, which was that it was very close to worth it, if not worth it, even if we didn't get lucky, I think it's worth it. Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what is next year. I expect the NFT and crypto stuff to actually increase next year, but I also expect the that stuff to be more present as well.
Hey, maybe they'll all crash and it won't increase. Let's hope.
Yeah. Hey, maybe. All
right. Let's bang out these last few things where we're going long.
Let's talk about some the hotel situation, the whatever staying place.
Yes, the hotel and hostel situation.
The food situation, the safety situation, that holistic, just being there.
So
situation.
Let's talk hotel. I've thought about this a lot. So hotels there in San Francisco are very expensive.
Expensive as fuck.
Anthony and I both paid about the same for our hotels. We stay in different hotels. Our rooms, compared to what I would have gotten in Colorado, for example, at what I paid, which was approximately $200 a night or something, $200 to $250 a night, it was probably half the size of what a room would be, at least half the size of what a room would be out here for that price.
Maybe even a third.
Yeah. They were very small. I mean, they were nice rooms. They were clean and they were nice, but they were very small. So I honestly, the hotel was so expensive. Afterwards, in retrospect, I will be absolutely attempting to share a room with someone next time I go. I would, if Sean and Josh go, I'll be like, we're getting a room, 3 beds or whatever. I'll sleep on the floor. I don't care, but I want to split a room because there's no way.
Not worth it.
It was not worth it for me to pay that much again for a hotel just for a solo room.
Yeah, really look at the parameters of what you're getting. Josh was the other member of our team, so I stayed with my wife in a hotel. Skylar stayed in a different one, and Josh stayed in another one. He was of the understanding that he'd have a bathroom.
Well, he paid. No, he knew there was going to be a shared bathroom. He knew.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yes, it was. So he paid under $100 a night for his room. His room was even smaller than ours, and it had a shared bathroom on the floor. He thought it was going to be a dorm bathroom, but no, it was a single bathroom with one toilet and one shower for the entire floor of his hotel.
Yeah, more hostel style.
Yeah,
and there were some hostels there that are available that are more affordable
and supposedly relatively nice. It's just the matter was that because of COVID, we chose to not consider those, or at least I chose to not.
If that's a part of your consideration, as Josh said, it was a closet masquerading as a bathroom. You barring you really spend money on the higher things, like which if you're an indie dev, you very likely don't have the budget to do. Expect that it's going to be compromised conditions.
It's not enough. Yeah, it's
You're
not.
You're gonna make some compromises in your stay, if you will.
Yes. Yeah. You will have to, unless you're willing to pay over $200 a night, upwards of $300 a night for your hotel.
Now, I also thought food was expensive.
I think in general, San Francisco is an expensive city, and yes, food in general was more expensive. I would say on average, $2 to $5 more expensive than what we would pay for the similar food here.
Yeah, or more.
Or more, depending at the nicer restaurants. Yeah,
it was expensive. Food was expensive. I don't know. Again, so for our experience, we were primarily just around the Moscone area. We didn't really go out of San Francisco.
I mean, I went into Chinatown multiple times for food, which is not really in the Moscone area. But other than that, we ate mostly in the Moscone area.
So keep that in mind. It might be cheaper outside of that area. They might be taking advantage of people,
coming to that conference center often. Yeah.
But food was not cheap. Was food good, Skylar?
When I went to a place that I thought would be good, which I'm generally relatively good at estimating, it was good. Like, the food at the places I expected to be good was good, and even the food at the places we sort of went to randomly that maybe wasn't going to be so good ended up being pretty good too. I would say overall the quality of the food was good. I enjoyed pretty much everything we ate, except for maybe one or two things, and those were minor.
Stuff in the immediate Moscone area was not bad at all. I thought the Materion, shout out to the Materion and Buckhorn Grill that was in there.
Anthony fucking loved Buckhorn Grill.
Favorite place we ate during that time.
It was basically a slightly fancier Steak Escape, but Anthony loved it. Of course,
fucking good, dude.
No, it was good. I agree. Good. Their food was good. The thing I ate there was good too. Now, if you want
in there,
if you want real food though, you don't want to be going to the Materion. You want to be going to Chinatown.
But you want to know what you're doing, because I feel like you could eat some shit and spend a lot of money.
If you know how to Google effectively, you should be okay. But yeah, if you want Chinatown recommendations, hit me up. I went to two. One of the restaurants I went to in Chinatown, but actually two of the three. I went to three different restaurants in Chinatown. A dim sum place. We went to a fancy Chinese restaurant, and then I went to a Szechuan Chinese restaurant. The dim sum place was good. It was not the best dim sum I've ever had. San Francisco is known for their dim sum, but Josh and I didn't have time to do a lot of research. The place was good, but I imagine there are better. The fancy Chinese restaurant Anthony and Brittany did actually come to, and Anthony, I thought it was great. Anthony also really liked it, so that's a strong review.
Can't say, I'm not a weird food guy. I don't want like fucking, what was it called? Like boiled spicy fish.
Anthony wants to get an idea of Anthony's food tastes. The first day we got there, the first day when we have the opportunity, to explore our surroundings, he's like, I want Chipotle. So
yeah, fucking don't give me some weird shit. Like,
he's
Brittany's
just like
here in chat. If you are very, conservative about your food choices,
well, you wouldn't go to that restaurant anyway. You wouldn't go there anyway, right? Yeah, Brittany. But Brittany didn't eat anything there. She ate one bite of one thing that she ordered.
She loved Buckhorn Grill. She loved the place.
At the Chinese restaurant, she ate one bite of one thing she ordered that we told her she wouldn't like. So
and she did not like.
Yeah,
it.
So that is not an active review. Anyway, so yeah, so if you're looking for like real like food, like foodie food, San Francisco has tons. There's tons of nice restaurants. There's lots of very good seafood. We went to a good seafood restaurant that had some good crab. Granted, it was extremely expensive. And even the Chinatown restaurants I went to were very expensive. So
generally, like food options were good, but it was all expensive.
Great food options, really good food options, very expensive. Yeah, that's the overview.
Now, how safe was it?
Okay, so going in, I was informed that San Francisco has a large homeless population and that it could be even worse because of COVID, potentially. And basically, I was told directly from multiple people, don't walk around alone at night ever. Like, straight up. So, I mean, that statement alone should tell you that, like, it's not that safe, especially at night.
Our experience, I think, verified those
I
words.
think at night, I would, based on what we experienced, I would not walk around alone ever. Like, it is not a good idea. I felt very safe during the day, basically anywhere I walked. Granted, we didn't walk to like there's an area called the Tenderloin that's notoriously very unsafe. We didn't go near that. But all the areas I walked during daytime, even if there were homeless people who were even acting a little crazy, I never felt like threatened or like we were going to be like unsafe in those situations. But you did have to be aware. You couldn't just like, be completely ignoring your surroundings. So, yeah, safety, you got to be aware, I would say, is the review from me. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm pretty consistent on all of that stuff. Yeah, Brittany's making the point. Josh was from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, which is not, well, I mean, it's getting better now, I think, but like, it's not really the greatest, safest place. Either was wary of his surroundings at night too, which we were like, I took it like, hey, okay, if Josh is kind of paying attention, I'm paying attention. But yeah, I did feel like the city was relatively vacant. I had read articles of a lot of people still haven't come back to the city because of COVID.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's why or what.
Well, also there was half the people at the conference that there normally were, which I assume is normally the population that's in that area.
Yeah, I initially came in feeling like maybe it was kind of clean there. I think I come away with that's not really the case. Like,
I thought like it was as clean as any average city, but no cleaner.
Yeah, I mean, it was cleaner than New York.
Yeah.
But I didn't go to New York during COVID, so I don't know what New York's like right now. Anyway, take that for what it's worth. I mean, the Target we went to was fucking, all the front door and windows were all broken and like all boarded up.
I mean, there have been some protests in the recent time, which is probably why those things are like that.
Anyway, so it like, yeah.
It felt like a normal city to me. A normal city that was like, you need to be more aware.
I mean, that's worse than Denver, man.
No. Like, yeah. But like an average, like low city, like city. Denver is not like yeah. Like where you don't want to be. You want to be safe at night. I would recommend take an Uber or a Lyft at night, and you can probably walk around pretty freely during the day as long as you're staying in the area around the convention center.
And there's people around where you're walking, if not, right? Like, we never saw anybody pulling anything on anybody.
Yeah, nothing, no problems during the day. I mean, we didn't even see any problems at night, really, but we didn't put ourselves in those.
We definitely heard problems from our hotel room during the night. Yeah. But anyway, so keep that in mind. All these things together, in my opinion, see if you agree with this, I would really recommend, if possible, going with somebody to GDC.
I would not go to GDC completely alone if you were meeting someone you knew there, sure. But I would say you want to know at least one other person who's going that you can be around for some of it. Otherwise, you just might end up really not having a great time because the reality is no one is like looking to talk to you unless you're like willing to go talk to them, and otherwise you're just gonna I think feel pretty lonely if you're there alone, to be honest.
Yeah, at least that's my take. Also on the food thing, something I forgot to mention, we ran into somebody at the end that was saying that there was actually like free food available, like these free food trucks that were coming by that were like sponsored by certain companies as like some sort of like advertising kind of play.
We never saw that, so
research your stuff. What we're telling you is our experience. And we talked about how much research we did on various things, so take it for what it's worth. You could maybe have a much more economical food situation.
Yeah. Speaking of economical, let's talk about how much we estimate we paid overall for the trip.
Okay.
Per person, since you paid for two. But so I'm thinking, I mean, flights are going to vary for everyone, right? So maybe we'll ignore flights. But if you're staying in a hotel like Anthony and I did, we paid about $2,000+ for our hotel for the week, right?
Yeah.
Yep, we both paid over $2,000 for our hotel. The conference was like $400, and then I imagine we probably spent, I don't know exactly what we spent on food.
So let's say 500.
That's another 500. Yeah, sure.
Well, yeah, not per person.
But
we only had one account.
But we could say like 2,500 at this point. Yeah. Plus food, we probably spent at least $500 on food, if not more, right, per person. Yeah, for sure. So at least 30,000, if not 3,500. I mean, you're probably shooting, if you're staying in a nice hotel like we did and not splitting it, which, like I said, I believe was a mistake.
Nice hotel. Again, remember what we called a nice hotel.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm saying expect to pay between $3,000 and $5,000 per person, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you could maybe get it down to 2,000 if you were really, or at least 2,500 if you were more frugal about the food
I mean, and
options
if
and
you're
stuff
frugal
like
about
that.
food and sharing a hotel, I think you could pay between
Yeah.
1 and 225. I think you could pay even under 2,000 if you did all that. But
Yeah, sharing a hotel is a great idea. If you're, yep. So, as a CA, I spent probably $750, $400 paid for the
yeah,
whole
that's
week.
a big no. So there is something at GDC called a CA, a conference assistant, I think is what it stands for. And they are able to go for free. They get an all access pass. So if you can't afford to go to GDC, you should apply to be a CA. It is very competitive, but if you get in, you get a free all access ticket. That's $3,000 that you're getting for free. And then Nico, the guy we met who was a CA, he split a room with 3 friends. So he at the same hotel I stayed at. So he probably paid about $50 a night instead of, $200. Conference associate, excuse me. So yeah, so he said he spent about $750. So I think if you're a CA, you could probably spend under $1,000. If you're not a CA, it'll probably be under $2,000 if you're frugal. And if you don't think about being frugal too much like we did, it'll probably be closer to $3,000 to $5,000.
Yeah, for the people who are listening, like, how the fuck are you guys indie devs and you were able to spend? I mean, we have full-time jobs as software engineers. That's how we also subsidize the studio. So we had the great benefit of being able to be more comfortable in this regard on certain things.
Yeah.
But
even
yeah.
us at the end of the conference, we were talking about how we definitely need to budget better next year. Like it was more expensive than we expected too.
We did not do a ton of research beforehand. This is our first GDC ever. I think we'll definitely handle things differently next year.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So that's GDC.
Okay, so overall, was it worth going?
Absolutely, 100%, 100%. If you can afford it, even if you have to do one of the more frugal methods, go. For sure, go. If you're an indie dev.
If you only are interested in the talks, I would say it's not worth it.
If you're only going for the talks, yeah,
don't go.
I would just
get
buy
the GDC
vault and watch
for
it later.
$650 a year and watch it online.
Absolutely, totally agreed.
No way.
Totally
If
agreed.
you are going primarily for the talks, like no networking, don't give a shit about the expo, do not go.
No.
Get the vault. If you're going for the networking, again, take some of the tips we said, build the relationships beforehand, take it, capitalize on those in person. And if you don't, like if somehow you listen to this in a place where you can't do that, keep in mind all the things we said.
Speed networking, all
you're
of
gonna
that.
have to hustle networking if you don't have any relationships.
But it's 100% worth it
that.
if you want to go for networking. You're willing to do that.
Yep.
The networking was by far the best part for us.
Something Eduardo Ortiz Frau said when he came on our podcast previously that I think I agree with. People definitely do take the fact that you're there and you made the effort to be there and the investment to be there seriously.
Yeah.
So when you're networking, if you put in all the effort and all the money to be there, people take notice of that. And,
that basically gets you in the door of the initial interaction. It's not totally cold in that you already have the thing in common that you both came to GDC. So
yeah, it says something about how seriously you're taking this and how bad you want the opportunities. And remember, oh my God, take fucking business cards.
Yes.
Like no matter who you are, what you're doing, take business cards. No matter what, you have to take business cards. Even if you're not part of the studio, you have to take business cards.
Even if they just have like your personal email and maybe like your website to your portfolio or whatever, take them.
Or just your Twitter, like
anything. Yeah.
We just for what it's worth, we gave out at least like roughly 100 cards.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're trying to get some, we bought 200. We went with 200. I'll definitely do that next year. There's even more people. I might be giving them out more readily.
Yep.
So that anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, that's GDC. It was great. I think we both had a really good time there, regardless of like all the businessy side of it. Like it was a very fun experience, and it was great.
Yes. Yeah. At least for us, I think we're going to strongly be considering going again next year. But yeah.
Cool. Thank you all for listening. And if people want to find us, where could they find us? I forgot. It's been a month. I can't remember.
I know, it's been a bit. We're a little rusty. You can find us at koalaentertainment.com. There you have links to all our social media, and you have more information about Agora, our first-person puzzle platformer shooter. We like to call it an F3PS, or if you prefer an FPPPS,
yes.
whatever.
FPPPS.
Yes, F3PS. Agora is pretty.
Maybe a fourth P coming soon that we're not stating publicly yet, but I think it will become an FPPPPS soon.
Oh shit, PPPPS. Yes, you can find more info about Agora and the things we have talked about so far on at our website. It's the first link right there. You also get links to our Discord, where we have 2 custom Discord bots that run an idle game that facilitate. You can get giveaways and all kinds of stuff. We actually have a slew of giveaways about to hit the Discord here soon. Anyway, lots of stuff.
Yep.
So thank you so much to our patrons who supported us. If you want to hear all of our fun stories, anecdotes from this particular
the dark
GDC,
side of GDC,
make sure you subscribe. Yeah, we're going to be talking about that later this week with our patrons in a private stream with them. So,
which
anyway,
will be released to the public eventually. You're not required to join the Patreon to watch it, but if you want to hear it soon, you're going to want to join.
Yeah, thank you so much to our patrons for supporting us. And we will see you guys later. We'll be back next week. We're returning to our weekly podcast episode. Guests incoming.
Yep.
Content is back.
If you do join the Patreon, make sure you ask us a quality time question. We'll answer your question on the podcast. We don't have any right now, but ask us some and we'll answer them.
That's right. All right.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. We are very grateful to every person who is in our community. Like, seriously.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. If you're listening to this and we interacted with you at GDC, it was so nice to meet you. And we'd love to hear your thoughts about GDC too. Join the Discord and we'll let everybody know.
Goodbye.
Ooh, see ya.
All right, so now, chat, anyone who's stuck around, it's time for a giveaway.
Agora crossplay and cross save. We are absolutely working on implementing that for sure. So, for example,